The Galactic Union had seen many crises in its time, plagues that swept across worlds, political upheavals that nearly shattered interstellar alliances, and even the occasional cosmic anomaly threatening entire systems, but nothing compared to what now stopped the galaxy, an unstoppable force known only as the Vorgoth, a species of relentless conquerors. The Vorgoth had spread like wildfire, consuming everything in their path. The peaceful worlds of the Galactic Union were no match. Their weapons, built for defense and diplomacy, shattered under the weight of the Vorgoth war machine. Desperation set in. Planets that once thrived as havens of prosperity were reduced to little more than smoldering ruins. And so, the Council sent out a desperate plea, broadcast across the stars, hoping, praying that someone, anyone, would answer. The call for aid. In the Council's Grand Hall, representatives of countless species gathered in tense silence. Their hope was faint, but it was all they had left. Their message had been simple. We are under siege, our civilizations are burning, and we cannot fight this threat alone. If there is anyone out there who can help us, we beg you to answer. 4 days, no response came. The galaxy had grown quiet, fearful of drawing the Vorgoth's attention. Then, on the 7th day, the humans responded. The holographic figure of a human commander, stern and battle-worn, appeared in the center of the council chamber. His voice, firm but calm, cut through the quiet. We received your message. You are not alone. The Deathworlders arrived. The humans were known throughout the galaxy as Deathworlders. Their home planet, Earth, was a hellish place by most species standards. It was a world of violent storms, devastating tectonic shifts, apex predators, and harsh climates. Life on Earth had to be tough, resilient, and, above all, adaptable. Many in the Galactic Union viewed the humans with a mixture of awe and fear. Theirs was a species that thrived in adversity, one that had honed warfare to an art form, but they had rarely been called upon by the Union, until now. Within days of the humans' response, their fleet arrived at the edge of Union space, massive warships, bristling with weapons unlike anything the peaceful Union species had ever seen, emerged from hyperspace. The lead ship, Dauntless, loomed above the Council's homeworld like a guardian from the stars. From its hangars, sleek human fighters launched, taking up defensive positions around the planet. The Council watched in awe as the humans, in their heavily armored exosuits, made their way to the surface for a strategy meeting. They were taller and more imposing than the councillors had imagined, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. These were beings who had survived on a death world. They were survivors, warriors. The battle begins. It wasn't long before the Vorgoth arrived. Their ships, dark and menacing, blotted out the stars as they descended upon the planet. The Galactic Union's forces had already fallen back, their defenses shattered. Only the human fleet stood between the Vorgoth and the extinction of yet another world. On the ground, Commander Marcus Graves stood alongside the Union's finest generals. His voice was steady, even as reports of the approaching enemy fleet flooded in. "Hold the line," he said, his eyes sharp and unwavering. "This is what we're made for." The Vorgoth came in waves, their warships and ground forces relentless. Their technology was brutal, efficient, designed for total domination, but they had never fought humans before. The humans fought back with a ferocity that stunned the Council. In space, their ships moved with precision, outmaneuvering the Vorgoth fleet with tactics that were ruthless and unpredictable. On the ground, human soldiers held the line with unyielding courage, their exosuits shrugging off the enemy's most devastating weapons. Where other species might have faltered, the humans pressed forward. Every setback only seemed to ignite a deeper fire within them. At one point, a Vorgoth dreadnought broke through the front lines, heading straight for the Council's homeworld. The councillors looked to the sky in terror, but before the dreadnought could land, it was intercepted by the Dauntless. Graves gave the order. The Dauntless' main cannon fired, a beam of energy so powerful it split the dreadnought in two. The remnants of the Vorgoth ship burned up in the atmosphere, a fiery trail across the sky. Cheers erupted from the council chamber, but Graves remained focused. The battle wasn't over yet. Victory through courage. The fight raged on for hours. But as the sun set on the Council's homeworld, the tide turned. The humans, battered but unbroken, pushed the Vorgith forces back. The invaders, having never encountered such fierce resistance, began to retreat. By the time dawn broke, the skies were clear. The Vorgith fleet had been decimated, and their ground forces were in full retreat. The Union's capital, and perhaps the entire galaxy, had been saved. In the aftermath, the Council reconvened, this time with the human commanders present. Gratitude was clear in every alien face, but so was awe. One of the counselors, an elder from a peaceful race of scholars, spoke first. "We owe you our lives, our worlds. You humans, you are unlike any species we have ever known. How can we ever repay you?" Graves, weary from battle but still standing tall, shook his head. "You don't owe us anything. We fight because that's what we do. It's how we survive." He looked around the chamber, his gaze steady. "But now you know. If ever the galaxy is in danger again, humans will be there." With that, the humans left as quickly as they had come, their fleet disappearing into the stars. They did not linger for praise or glory. For them, the fight was never about recognition. It was about survival for themselves and for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And so, the galaxy learned that when the most dangerous threat of all came knocking, the Deathworlders answered with unyielding courage. The council chamber, once filled with frantic whispers and fearful glances, now stood in silence. The humans were gone, their fleet of warships vanishing into the cold void of space. The peace that followed their departure was fragile, as if the galaxy itself was still reeling from the ferocity of the battle. Though the Vorgith had been pushed back, their looming presence remained a stark reminder of what the galaxy had narrowly avoided. But more than the threat of the Vorgith, it was the memory of humanity's intervention that dominated the minds of every counselor. The sheer power they had witnessed left no room for doubt. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As the last embers of the Vorgith's invasion flickered out, the Union struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the events that had unfolded. Questions began to surface, questions the Union had never thought to ask before. One such question came from Counselor Tyson, a dignified member of a race known for their cautious diplomacy. "What do we do now?" Tyson asked, his voice shaking slightly. "The Vorgith will return. They always do." General Arvin, the Union's top military advisors, glanced at the empty seat where Commander Graves had sat only hours before. "Then we call the humans again. We've seen what they can do." But Tyson shook his head, his eyes filled with apprehension. "They are unpredictable, unyielding. What happens when they no longer need us, when they see the Union as an obstacle instead of an ally?" The counselors shifted uneasily. The Deathworlders had saved them. Yes, but what did humanity want in return? Could they trust a species that thrived in conflict? Ripples in the stars, far from the Council's worries, the human fleet was already on its next mission. Inside the command center of the Dauntless, Commander Marcus Graves reviewed the battle's aftermath with his senior officers. The mood was somber, a stark contrast to the victory they had achieved. For humans, even if it came at a cost. Captain Elise Ward, the ship's tactical officers, leaned over the console, her brow furrowed. "The Vorgith will adapt. They always do," she said, echoing the very words spoken by Counselor Tyson in another part of the galaxy. Graves nodded. "I know. They learn fast. We'll need new strategies. But we can't keep doing this forever," Ward added. "Eventually, the Union has to fight for itself." Graves didn't respond immediately. His eyes focused on the star chart before him, the endless stretch of black and unknown threats lurking within it. He knew Ward was right. The Union's dependence on humanity would grow if they didn't start defending themselves. The galaxy was vast, and Earth's resources, while formidable, were finite. "We'll keep fighting," Graves said finally, "but we need to make sure the Union can stand on its own. They have to learn to fight like we do." "That's asking a lot," Ward said with a slight smirk. "We're Deathworlders for a reason." Graves met her gaze, his expression hardened by years of battle. "They don't have a choice, neither do we." Seeds of change. Back in the Galactic Union, not everyone was convinced that humanity was the key to their survival. The Council was divided. While some argued for deeper alliances with the humans, Others were wary of becoming too reliant on a species they didn't fully understand. Ambassador Kallian, representing the peaceful Zwinari, voiced what many were thinking. The humans are strong, but their strength comes from violence. They come from a world where only the strong survive. Is that what we want for the Union? But without them, we'd be dead by now, countered Admiral Luther of the Dravani, a warlike species who had admired humanity's prowess. You saw what they did. The Vorgoth fear them. Ambassador Kallian sighed. Fear and respect are not the same. If we depend on them, we may lose more than we gain. The debate raged on. Should they welcome humanity's strength and forge closer ties, or should they remain cautious, fearing that one day the Deathworlders might become more of a threat than the Vorgoth? Meanwhile, rumors spread like wildfire across the Union's many worlds. Stories of human warriors battling in the smoke-filled streets of ruined cities, tales of ships that could turn the tide of war in mere moments, and whispers of a species that seemed to revel in the chaos of battle. Some saw the humans as saviors, others saw them as a necessary evil. But the most unsettling stories were those of the humans themselves, beings who, despite their kindness and willingness to help, possessed a darkness born from a planet where life itself was a constant struggle, a species that, when pushed, would stop at nothing to ensure their survival. The shadow of the Vorgoth, far away. The remnants of the Vorgoth fleet limped back to their home systems. They were a species built for conquest, but their defeat at the hands of humanity had shaken them. They had never encountered such resistance, such unwavering defiance. On the bridge of the Vorgoth flagship, Supreme Commander Crutch surveyed the data. The humans were not what the Vorgoth had expected. They were more dangerous than any species they had encountered before. Adaptable, aggressive, and resourceful traits that the Vorgoth themselves admired. They fought like us, Crutch growled, a mixture of frustration and respect in his voice. The Vorgoth would not retreat forever. They would rebuild, learn from their mistakes, and when the time was right, they would return, but next time, they would be ready for the Deathworlders. As Crutch stared out into the void, he made a vow. The next time the Vorgoth and humanity met, the galaxy would tremble once more. A new beginning. Back aboard the Dauntless, Commander Graves stood alone in his quarters, gazing out at the stars. The Union had survived, but the war was far from over. The Vorgoth would return, and when they did, the Union would need to be stronger than ever. It had been months since the humans' victory over the Vorgoth, and though the galaxy had breathed a collective sigh of relief, the aftermath had left more questions than answers. The Galactic Union had begun to rebuild, fortifying their worlds with newfound urgency. But peace was an illusion, a thin veil over the storm brewing just beyond the stars. Deep in the unexplored fringes of space, the Vorgoth were not idle. The lessons of their defeat had been learned well, and in the cold, dark recesses of their war-torn systems, they planned their revenge. They had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. On one of the Vorgoth command ships, Supreme Commander Crutch watched as engineers worked tirelessly on new weapons and tactics, designed specifically to counter the humans. It was clear now, brute force alone would not be enough. The humans fought with cunning, with adaptability traits the Vorgoth had never encountered in such intensity. They fight like animals backed into a corner. Crutch muttered to his second-in-command, "Next time, we strike at their heart before they can show their fangs." The galaxy may have been calm for now, but in the shadows, war was being forged anew. The growing rift in the Galactic Union, whispers of unease had grown louder. The initial gratitude toward humanity was beginning to fracture. Worlds once united in the face of the Vorgoth threat were now divided over what the future held. On the Union capital planet, council meetings were becoming more contentious. The debate was no longer just about the Vorgoth, it was about the humans themselves. Had they saved the Union? Yes, but at what cost? Ambassador Kallian stood at the center of the chamber, addressing the assembly. His voice was calm, but the tension in the room was palpable. Honorable councillors, the humans have proven their strength, but they also bring with them a culture of violence. Their methods, while effective, are not aligned with the principles this union was built upon. Do we want to rely on a species whose greatest asset is war? Admiral Luther, ever the champion of human intervention, was quick to counter. Without them, we would not be here. You saw what the Vorgith did to our fleets, our cities. The humans stood in the breach. They bled for us. Councillor Tyson, who had once been ambivalent, now leaned in. We need them, yes, but they are not like us. Their world Earth is a place of constant struggle. Perhaps we should learn from their strength, but we cannot allow them to shape the future of the Union. It was a debate that would not be resolved easily, and as the days passed, the Union's leaders found themselves walking a delicate line. The galaxy was still vulnerable, and the humans were a necessary ally. But how long could this alliance last before tension snapped? A dangerous proposal. Meanwhile, on the edge of Union space, the Dauntless floated above a bare moon, a lone sentinel in the cold. Inside, Commander Marcus Graves stood before a holomap, reviewing the latest reports. The Vorgith had gone quiet, too quiet. His instincts told him something was coming, something big. Captain Ward approached, her expression grim. We've intercepted a message from the Union's outer colonies. There's talk of a new alliance forming within the Council and without us. Graves raised an eyebrow. Without us? Ward nodded. It's subtle for now, but there are factions within the Union that think we're becoming too powerful, too dangerous. They're scared of what we represent. Graves wasn't surprised. He had expected this. The Union had always been a fragile thing, held together by shared fear rather than trust, and humans' Deathworlders were the wild card. They needed us when the Vorgith were at their doorstep. Graves said quietly, now that they think the threat is gone, they're questioning us. Ward leaned on the console, her voice low. What if they're right? We're not exactly like them. We're warriors. Marcus, they live in peace. We prepare for war. Graves looked out at the stars, his mind running through countless possibilities. We didn't ask for this, Elise. We didn't ask to be the galaxy saviors, but if we hadn't stepped in, they'd all be dead. Ward sighed, standing up straight. So what do we do? Stay and fight their wars for them, or pull back and let them fend for themselves? Graves's eyes narrowed as he thought about the Vorgith. He could feel it in his gut. He weren't finished yet. The Union might have its doubts, but if they turned their backs on humanity now, the next attack could tear them apart. We stay, Graves finally said. We fight, because if we don't, no one will. The Vorgith's return. Months of uneasy peace came to a violent end when the Vorgith launched their counterstrike. It was not like the last time. The Vorgith had adapted, their ships faster, their weapons deadlier, and their tactics more ruthless. They hit Union worlds in rapid succession, targeting infrastructure and communications first, cutting off host systems before anyone could react. The Dauntless was one of the first to respond, arriving at the outskirts of a devastated system where 3 Union colonies had already fallen. This was no ordinary invasion. It was surgical, precise, designed to cripple rather than conquer. Graves watched the hollow screen as images of burning cities flashed before him. He clenched his fists. The Union was falling apart, and without human intervention, they wouldn't survive this second onslaught. Captain, Graves said, his voice cold with resolve, prepare the fleet. We're taking the fight to them. As the human ships mobilized, the Union scrambled to mount a defense, but it was clear they were outmatched. The Vorgith had returned stronger than ever, and the Union's unity was already faltering under the weight of internal distress. And then, as the first wave of human ships engaged the Vorgith fleet, the unexpected happened. A signal came through from the Union, a desperate message. Commander Graves, this is Councillor Tyson. We need your help. The Vorgith are attacking our central systems, and we can't hold them off. Please, you're our only hope.